I'm going to be revealing the reason that 99% of students don't get into Oxbridge. My name's Jamin and I studied maths at the University of Oxford. I absolutely loved my time there. Did the undergraduate and then the integrated masters as well. And now I help students all across the globe who are doing fine at A-level, but they're struggling, adjusting and bridging the gap of the Oxbridge admissions process. So if that's something that you're interested in, go and check out the link in the description below. Anyway, what is this mystery reason that most people get rejected? And I'm going to say this deliberately in a convoluted way, is they shouldn't apply. They've applied and they shouldn't have applied. So the reason that 99% of Oxbridge students, let me start that sentence again. The reason that 99% of Oxbridge applicants, I can't speak English today. The reason they get rejected is because they apply. What do I mean by that? Most people who apply to Oxbridge, certainly out of those who fail, shouldn't have applied because they weren't good enough. Now, that might sound heartbreaking to some of you. It might spark some curiosity. How do I know if I'm good enough or not? Why, should I apply? Let me break this down. To apply to Oxbridge, you've got to be smart. And to do well in that application process, you've got to jump over several hurdles. So if you're applying for Oxford for maths, you've got to do the personal statement, the admissions test, the MAT, then do the interviews, get an offer in January, and then of course do well in your A-levels or IB or whatever you're doing. If you're doing Cambridge, STEP at Cambridge, maths at Cambridge, you've got to do the interviews and STEP, and obviously again your A-levels as well. Those are big hurdles, in particular the interviews and the admissions test. Those are big hurdles. If you are not ready for those hurdles, you will not get an offer. There are lots and lots of students every year who apply. So broadly speaking, there's around 2,000 to 3,000 who apply to Oxford for maths, and they have roughly speaking 200 spaces for just maths. So if we include joint schools as well, around 250 spaces. So broadly speaking, a 1 in 10 chance, or 1 in 10 of the applicants will end up receiving offers. So it's about a 10% chance if you just roll a dice. Of course, it's not a dice roll though. They are choosing the top 10% of those applicants, and they're pretty good at doing it. Don't get me wrong, there might be the occasional person who is maybe good enough and doesn't get an offer, or someone who does get an offer and shouldn't have, but by and large, you're getting an offer because you deserve an offer, and you're getting rejected because you deserve to be rejected. That sounds super harsh. I'm looking directly into the camera. If you get rejected, it's because you deserve to get rejected. Hopefully that is not to insult anyone that's got rejected. It's a kick up the bum for anyone who's preparing for Oxbridge to really take it seriously, now more than ever. I applied 8 years ago, and even then it was the competition was intense. Now it's even more so because there's so many more resources available for students who are preparing. So, should you apply to Oxbridge? This kind of weird thing I've been saying of don't apply if you're not ready, if you're not good enough. How do you know if you're good enough? I think the main reason you should apply, and the best way to tell if you're good enough is actually not if you are scoring well in the exams or doing well in the past papers or whatever. It's if you enjoy the subject. So I'm a math specialist and I'm a big maths nerd. That's one of my best phrases, my favorite phrases to use when I describe my relationship with mathematics. I'm a big maths nerd. I really enjoy learning about maths. I really enjoy explaining maths, talking about maths. That's what this channel is all about, me solving maths problems and talking about maths, being a big maths nerd. If you are not one of those for either maths or whatever subject it is you're looking to apply for, why on earth are you applying? Seriously, that's a genuine question. Really ask yourself, why are you applying to Oxbridge? Why do you feel that you deserve Oxbridge? Because let's not beat around the bush. Oxford and Cambridge are the best universities, certainly in the UK, for 99% of subjects, maths included. So every year, if you just look at the leaderboards, but forget the leaderboards because leaderboards aren't really based on undergraduate performance. Normally the leaderboards are based off of research, but even then Oxford and Cambridge are at the top. In terms of teaching style, how much you learn at the end of the degree, and also how much they're valued going forward later in life. So if you want to apply for a job, the sad truth is if you have Oxford or Cambridge on your CV, at the end of the day, you're going to get into a lot more jobs a lot more easily. The hard truth, and I'll speak from experience here, is a lot of jobs, they will literally have a stack of CVs when they apply, and if it doesn't say Oxford or Cambridge on it, it just goes straight in the bin. And that's just because there is so much competition out there. And that is why Oxford and Cambridge are the best universities, and I will stick by it. At this moment in time, they are the best universities for students who love their subjects and who are good at those subjects. If you do not meet both those criteria, don't bother applying. If you don't love maths / you aren't good at maths, don't bother applying, because you will get eaten up. It's not worth your time preparing for these admissions tests and the interviews if you don't really enjoy maths. How can you tell if you're good at maths? And you enjoy maths, It's because you're deciding to learn maths. Your main driving factor, your main thing that's making you want to study maths is not Oxbridge. It is maths. So you do maths for maths' sake. To put things into context, when I was at school, so between year 12, year 13, and when I was obviously thinking about university and application and preparing for the admissions process, I was learning maths outside of school. Both A-level content I was teaching myself, which is a really good tip. If you're not doing that already, just teach yourself. And I was also watching number file videos, black pen, red pen videos. I was going to maths courses. So I had the benefit of living in London. So there were loads and loads of courses. So I did one at UCL. I did some at Warwick, did 2 courses at Warwick. I did one at the Royal Institution, or a few at the Royal Institution, at like a place in central London. So I did all these courses. Not because I was like, oh, great, I can add this to my personal statement. It's because I found it interesting. I found it really interesting. And then when I would do those courses, there'd be parts of it where I go, oh, that's really interesting. Why is that true? Why is that useful? How can that be applied? And then I'd go and research into those areas. Again, it sounds kind of almost cliche, because this is the stuff that you talk about in your personal statement, and 95% of people don't actually care about maths in that way. But I was that 5%. I genuinely did find it really interesting. And that's what you kind of got to be. You got to be a big maths nerd. And if you are not one of those big maths nerds, why are you applying? Now more than ever, lots of people maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago would apply to university because of jobs. And don't get me wrong, there's still a large amount of jobs where you have to have a degree. But there are so many things you can do where you don't need a degree. And if you're applying to university with the mentality of, oh, I need to get a degree, fine. You're not going to get into Oxbridge with that mentality. If by some miracle you do, which I would bet a lot of money that isn't possible, or it's extremely unlikely, if by any miracle you do, you will not survive Oxbridge. To survive Oxbridge, you've got to be a big maths nerd. I've said it about 10 times in this video. Or big history nerd, big French nerd, whatever it is you study, you've got to be a big nerd in that subject. You've got to love it. You've got to breathe it. You've got to do it for fun. And what's the best way of kind of measuring that? I think a really good thought exercise to do is, let's fast forward a few months to January 2026. So if you're applying to study maths this year, let's fast forward to January, and you get an email from UCAS saying there's been an update to your UCAS service, or whatever it's called, and it's an email from Oxford or Cambridge, and they say you got rejected. Now, of course, everyone's going to feel sad. I certainly would. You're going to feel sad if you get that email. But do you still enjoy maths? Will you still go home and watch that number file video? Will you still go and attend that lecture course? If the answer is no, don't bother applying. You are going to save yourself a lot of hassle and a lot of pain in January when you get rejected, because likelihood is you will if you do not enjoy your subject. This sounds really harsh, and normally my videos are a bit more upbeat, but I kind of want to make it very clear that it's not worth applying if you are not a big maths nerd. That being said, you are either a new viewer to my channel, in which case welcome, do subscribe. If you are someone who's returning, you've probably seen a bunch of my maths videos before, and you're probably already on your way to being a maths nerd. You're probably already someone who is kind of quite interested in maths, or at least curious as someone who's been to Oxford, my experiences, those sorts of things. And you're already on your way to being a maths nerd. Maybe you're kind of in this intermediate phase where you're not really too sure if Oxbridge is for you. But hopefully I've given you a few different things to consider, things to think about, and really ask yourself the question, is Oxbridge for you? Because if it is, and you are serious about making an application, the next 6 months is going to involve a lot of work. Notice that I said a lot of work and not a burden, or it's going to be a difficult 6 months. It shouldn't be a difficult 6 months. If you love maths, it should be an amazing 6 months. You're going to have to put yourself through learning lots and lots and lots of maths, solving lots and lots and lots of problems, learning lots and lots of new things to do with maths. You're going to love it. If that thought scares you, if that thought makes you go, oh God, do I really have to? In the same way I felt, for example, when I was preparing for my GCSE RS exam, religious studies exam, I couldn't care. I did not care about, I can't even remember what the stuff was that I was being assessed on, but I couldn't care about it. If that's the way that you feel about the Oxbridge admissions process, I'll save you the hassle. Don't apply because you're going to get rejected. I'm going to say that with a smiling face. Don't apply because you're going to get rejected. So if you go through that thought process, spend some time, sit down, ask yourself that question. Do you genuinely enjoy your subject? So I know a few viewers on my channel aren't applying for maths. So in which case, great. Why aren't you applying to maths? It's the best subject. But more seriously, if you are applying for a subject, really think, do you actually enjoy it? And that's actually sometimes a difficult question to answer, because obviously for maths it's easy because you study, well I say it's easy, but it's easier because you study maths at school, you studied it for years. But if you're applying for a subject where maybe you haven't studied it super formally before, that's something where you need to do even more research in, because at the end of the day, you're going to be spending at least 9 grand for 3 to 4 years on this subject. Is it something you want to do? If you want to do it, why do you want to do it? Are you a big maths nerd? Great. If not, is it worth applying? My opinion, no. Certainly not worth applying to Oxbridge. It's a waste of time, waste of a university application spot. So don't apply to Oxbridge if you're not passionate. Anyway, that's my views on this. That is the reason genuinely 99% of people do get rejected from Oxbridge, is because they do not deserve a place. Sounds kind of obvious, but I think it's an important message to say. There's so many videos on YouTube and other platforms where people who have been to Oxbridge will say, yeah, apply, it's going to be hard work and all this sort of stuff. I say this all the time. I mean, it's all true. But let's not beat around the bush here. Most people who apply aren't good enough. I mean, in fact, 90% of people who apply aren't good enough. That is literally by definition in terms of the statistics. They only have X many places, Y people apply, therefore Y minus X over Y people, proportion of people are not good enough for Oxbridge. So with that in mind, do some serious consideration. Is university for you? That's a different question. That's maybe slightly, out of my pay grade. That's something which more, as someone who is now graduated and looking back, I feel if I hadn't gone to Oxbridge and I could rewind the clock, I wouldn't have gone to university, because I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as I would have at Oxbridge, or found it as valuable. That's a different story. So maybe if you're not sure, that's something that I don't want to make too much of a comment on. But if you're going to apply to Oxbridge, which is my speciality, only apply if you love your subject and are good at it. Simple as. Anyway, that's my little rant over. As I said earlier, if you are someone who's looking to study maths at Oxford, Cambridge, or you got to do the MAT, TMUA interviews, whatever, do get in touch. So my system has worked with over 80% of the students I work with who end up receiving Oxbridge offers. So if that's something you're interested in, helping students, or me helping you kind of get to a really strong grade in the admissions test, but also in the interviews as well, in as little as 12 weeks, do get in touch. Link in the description below. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll leave another video on the screen now where I talk about how to do well in the MAT, or my top tips for the MAT. Go and check that out. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you over there.